What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So today I have a really quick or semi-quick disassembly video. What you're looking at here is a Novatec F192.SB hub, and the reason for the video is because YouTube has a little bit of information on how to work on this thing, but yeah, not a whole lot. And then when I contacted the manufacturer, the service manual that they sent me didn't match up to this hub. There's parts on that service manual that don't even match the parts that are in here, so I had to scour the internet for more information, and fortunately I found out the answers that I needed. So let's go ahead and jump into how to properly disassemble this thing. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, and I would definitely advise on doing this, is using some measuring tape. And here where you see your axle sticking out from the drive side, and also it's going to be on the non-drive side, you're going to want to measure how much of the axle is sticking out. The reason for this is that when you reassemble this whole thing, the axle has to stick back out the exact same way that it was before you disassembled it, and that's so your forks can go back in there, evenly, and your wheel doesn't have any issues with spinning. So take note of that. The next thing is that where you see your two grub screws, or the grub holes for the screws, you're going to want to remove those before you start banging away at anything. What do the grub screws look like? Right here, they're just really tiny screws. 2mm hex keys will remove that, so make sure that when you do remove them, be very careful not to lose them. You will have to put these back on, and then the fun begins. So you're going to turn the wheel around to the non-drive side, and the first thing that you're going to do, or the first thing you're going to need for the axle in order to remove it, you can use a piece of 5/16 sized wood, or you can just buy a dowel pin like this one. This looks familiar, I'm sure. IKEA furniture has a lot of these, or you can just buy them at Home Depot, just like these, in a whole box. So these are cheap, these are like $3-4, so I just picked up the box. So what you do is you take the dowel pin, you go right into where the axle is, and you can use a hammer, if you want. That's what I did. I used a hammer. I just banged away at it until the axle started to come out on the other side. You can see it lightly just kind of coming out, and then once it got to a point where the cone right here started to come off, I basically just pulled that right out, and it comes right out. So that is the cone. Set this off to the side, and then you take the dowel pin and you just keep tapping away lightly with the hammer until your axle gets to a point where you can pretty much pull it out. Now if you try to, and if it still doesn't come right out, just continue to tap away at the axle until it gets to a point where you can basically just pull it out from the other side. So once you do get to that point, just set the dowel pin to the side, grab the axle, and just pull it right out. So for the Novatec F192.SB, this is what the axle looks like. There is obviously no section for spanners here to remove the cone. There's no Allen key section on the axle itself. It's completely bored out, and it's the same on both sides. So once you're done with this, just set this off to the side as well. So in order to get the Freehub, there's a bearing here, obviously. But how do you remove this bearing? If you have a bearing puller, I would definitely say to use that. But if you're in my situation where you don't have that, what I did is I used a 6mm hex key, and I went in from the drive side, so just like this, and I was basically tapping away in a circular motion around the outer race, so the bigger circle on the bearing, very lightly, okay? And I used a hammer to lightly tap away at the L key as I was moving around the hex key in a circle around the entire bearing. Now of course it's not a good idea, but you can use this if you have a 5/16 piece of wood or something smaller where you can tap away at the race. That would be more that would be ideal, really. But if you don't, you can use this can work. Now one thing I will say is, if you damage the bearing, don't freak out. These are really inexpensive bearings, and you can buy these online. So if you damage it, or if you wanted to replace the bearing, then don't worry about it. You can get those, they're really cheap. So once you get to the point where you can go ahead and just get that thing right out there, just go ahead and pull the bearing out, and that'll give us access to the Freehub from this side. The reason why I say this side, which is the non-drive side, and not the drive side, is because normally on the Shimano Freehubs you can use a 10mm hex key and just thread this right out, but this obviously just spins around, it does nothing. So I went with the 11mm, and this does hang on, but it still won't come out. So then I went with pretty much what I call the behemoth, and this is a 12mm hex key. This thing is massive, and you're not going to find this in a store. You're going to have to buy this online, which sucks, but you know, it makes things a lot easier if you ever need to service it down the line again. So super useful. And what you do is you're going to go into the non-drive side. You're going to latch it onto the stator bolt, and then even though this is on here, you're not going to be able to leverage it out with just your hand. This Freehub is stuck on here. This is the funnest part of it all. There's going to be, you know, a moment where you're probably just not going to be able to get it even with the next tool. So don't be discouraged. This is going to take some muscle, okay? Now I say the next tool because what you're going to need is a cheater bar, or a breaker bar as some people call it, or just some, you know, good old plumbing pipe. And this is just to gain some leverage on this thing. Mind you, you're gonna have to do this counterclockwise. So I'll make sure to show you guys exactly how to do this. If you don't have a tire on the wheel, it's still perfectly fine. You can just use an old inner tube like I did, and these I'm not going to be using anymore, so it's, you know, it doesn't matter. I put one on the bottom and one against the wall, and the purpose for this is, one, obviously to protect the wheel, but two, it's also for grip, so that way this doesn't move around all over the place, because you're going to have to apply a lot of force to this breaker bar when you are pushing it counterclockwise. So if you're left-handed, obviously you can use your left hand and push this way. If you're right-handed, you're most likely going to do it this way. So you're going to pull in this backwards motion. So yeah, that's pretty much how you do it, and all you do is you grab it, make sure you guys really leverage yourself out, and then go ahead and just crank at the breaker bar, and you should be able to loosen that right up. Get that out, and that will release the Stator bolt, or the Stator bolt. Stator brothers, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but Stator bolt, Stator bolt, and this is what this looks like. So this is the only thing that's holding in the Freehub, and you can just set this off to the side if you need to clean it or anything. And then the easiest part is, boom, just pull the Freehub right out. So this particular hub uses an S1 Freehub, just in case you guys wanted to know, and I will link all this information in the description down below as well. So this hub does match up with the splines that are in the wheel as well. So that's pretty much it. That's how you disassemble this thing. If you guys like the video, make sure you guys like it, subscribe, it's free, so you know you're not paying for any subscriptions here. And if you guys have any comments, you know, constructive criticism, drop them in the comments down below, man. I like hearing stuff. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy. Catch you guys at the next one.